Hello guys, this is the last tutorial for PHP SOAP conversion. So I've already implemented the requests for PHP in library form. So as you can see, I've created another function aside from the index we created a while ago. So SOAP get registrations and then get professional number. As you can see, I've created already a library web service like this, and then sending a web service config. So I would not anymore build it one by one. I'll just add the link for the Git repository. So if ever you're not using CodeIgniter, you can replicate what I will be doing right now or discussing. So to show you how it works, so notice this is my local domain, then the controller, and then the class method. We'll just have to get the argument get and then version number. So as you can see, it returns standard class like this because the web service I've created, which is test, is returning the result and the array of object audit details. So if I remove it and just result, what will be returned is the full return in an object class. So as you can see in our postman, request, the return is like this. It's not found because we should implement a valid professional number, and it's like this. So the audit details is this array response and then professional number. So this would vary depending on the web service you are testing upon, but the important thing is that we could get the response result or find registration response. So as you can see here, there's an audit details, then professional number here, registration date, and so on. So how did we implement it in a library format web service? So first of all, so ignore this. First of all, I've implemented this load library web service in CodeIgniter, and then we implemented the library and then created a class web service. So this load library only loads the class, which is the web service, like this. So it is named class web service. Then it creates a new object, which is web service, new web service config. So web service config sends a server which is named test. What is that? The server named test is this. This is the URL of our server, which is the single WSDL format. Okay, so that initializes what URL in SOAP client we will use, and then account info array professional. So this just functions as the sending the professional number to this new object. So web service, new web service, because the class is web service here. So that is why it's new web service, passing the URL get for this, and then next is we call the object again web service find registration test, which is the method. Just the method we created to implement what we made in the controller index a while ago in the secondary tutorial. So that's it. So we are calling this method, and then now we have to discuss this public function method. So what happens is we've created the try catch inside the method, and then place the content of the index controller inside the class method. So this and the whole bunch of these were placed inside this location. So let me discuss now the web service we created. So when you call the web service, so we already implemented public and private variables to set, for example, the protected user ID and then protected password. So once the web service is called, it initializes to the construct underscore construct, and then notice it stores the IP address and then call the method itself to the initialize function. So the initialize function now creates an object which is called new SOAP client contained in this proxy. So this, don't worry about this, this is just the URL which is test. Then what we implemented in the index before, which is this client, is now this proxy, just like this, same as here. So the server URL is just this again. Okay, now that it's initialized, so when it's initialized and called in the get registration, which is this, it automatically now calls this find registration test method wherein, so we've already added the client which is proxy, which will now be called here. So the address which were discussed in the tutorial 2 of this series are here. So notice, since we implemented the protected user ID and password, we separately implemented it to be called in a new method, which is login details. So login details now, it's also inside the web service, just calling the new SOAP header for the user ID and the password. This user ID and this password are the protected variables inside the class web service. So now that that's discussed, so let's go back to the find registration test, which is our new method. Up to this is already same as the process in the tutorial 2, but then this now we manipulate the request response here. So this proxy, which is the client variable client method, calling the find registration and sending the parameters, now return the results. So the return results is also an object, as you can see in here is an object. So now, since we can manipulate it as object, we can get the response that we want to have, like this. So if we want to get the audit details only, which is in the Postman audit details and then professional number, we can do that just by implementing audit details. So if we return that, then test the browser again, we will get only the what do you call that? The audit details, which is composed of query identifier, practitioner count, service count, total records search, which is the same as here. So if you want to get only specific one, so for example, we want to get the query identifier only, add this to get the query parameter only. So which is that? So I'm using bar dump just to show that. So if you implement the web service call in curl, it is hard to manipulate this object return. For that reason, we need to create an object library like this. So if I also create another new method, so this for example, we return audit details and professional number. Like this. Like that. This what can we call it? This professional number replay. This audit details. How do we return it in SOAP? Like this? So we'll just implement it separately by dumping, for example, the audit details first. Let's try if it works. Okay, it works. And then let's try dumping again the other one.